There's a moment, a split-second, sacred moment, when everything changes, but not with noise, not with fireworks or fanfare. It changes in silence, in stillness, in the invisible exhale of your nervous system, when you finally stop gripping the illusion of control. It changes when you loosen your fists around the old self, the version of you built on fear, protection, performance, the one who believed survival required struggle, the one who thought manifestation was about effort and proving and forcing the universe to respond. But the universe doesn't respond to effort, it responds to energy. And your old energy, that closed-door identity, has already signaled all it could. It's already lived out its contracts. It's served its time. You're not wrong for wearing that identity. You were just younger in your becoming. You were wired for what felt safe. And what felt safe, often, was what was small, predictable, controllable. But here's the paradox. The life you ache for, the life that lights up your chest in quiet moments and returns to your dreams night after night, that life lives on the other side of surrender. And surrender isn't passive. It's not resignation. Surrender is choosing resonance over resistance. It's when you stop rehearsing your pain and start remembering your power. Letting go isn't giving up. It's tuning in. It's the visceral click when your body says, no more pretending. No more holding on to the version of me that fits someone else's story. The moment you let go, the universe doesn't wait. It rearranges itself. Not later, not tomorrow, in that exact moment. Because reality isn't fixed, it's fluid. And the observer, the one who sees through new eyes, collapses the old timeline with a single shift in frequency. So why does it feel hard to let go? Because the old self is familiar. Because even pain can feel like home when it's what you've always known. Because your nervous system, brilliant and loyal, wants to protect you. It doesn't recognize expansion as safety yet. It recognizes the known, the repeatable, the patterned. But you can teach it. You can breathe into the unfamiliar. You can hold your own heart through the wobble of unlearning. When you soften your grip, even a little, the quantum field listens. It always has. It responds not to your words, but to your embodiment, to the way your heart beats when no one is watching, to the choices you make when no one is rewarding you, to the integrity you hold in the quiet. That's your frequency. That's your language. And it's always translating. You've been taught to ask, what do I want? But a better question is, who am I willing to be? Because you don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you are. And what you are is a living signal, broadcasting safety or stress, trust or tension, coherence or chaos. So pause, right now, not with your mind, but with your breath. Feel the weight of all you've been carrying. Feel how much of it isn't yours, how much of it was inherited, absorbed, assumed. And feel the moment, this moment, as the invitation it is, not to force, but to free, not to climb, but to come home. You are allowed to be new, even before anything around you changes, even before evidence arrives. You are allowed to vibrate with the frequency of your future, not someday, now, because that future isn't far away. It's here, hovering just outside your current vibration, waiting for the moment you stop identifying with the door that's already closed. Not with force, but with frequency. Not from effort, from essence. Not more doing, more remembering. I used to think letting go meant losing something. Like dropping the rope would mean falling, failing, forfeiting the dream. I didn't know then that clinging to the old is what keeps the new at bay. I didn't know that the tighter I held on to what was no longer aligned, the more I delayed the arrival of what was trying to find me. Because the universe doesn't push, it waits. It waits for the invitation of coherence. It waits for your alignment. And alignment isn't found in control. It's found in truth. Truth is subtle. It doesn't scream. It whispers in the spaces between distraction. It echoes in the body before it reaches the mind. It's the flutter in your chest when you speak your desires out loud. It's the lump in your throat when you realize you've outgrown the role you've been playing. It's the sigh that escapes without permission when you finally admit, I'm ready for more. And not more as in quantity, more as in real, as in resonance, as in wholeness. When I finally let go of the version of me who needed to earn love, to prove worth, to chase approval, something miraculous happened. Life rearranged itself with quiet grace. Conversations shifted. Opportunities emerged from what looked like empty space. Synchronicities appeared, not as magic tricks, but as confirmations. Confirmations that I was finally attuned to a different timeline. One that didn't require exhaustion as currency. One where receiving wasn't a betrayal of hard work, but a celebration of alignment. We think manifestation is about getting, but it's really about becoming. Becoming the version of you who no longer doubts the inevitability of your joy. The you who doesn't apologize for peace. The you who knows that the moment you exhale into surrender, the entire field bends to meet your resonance. Because the quantum doesn't operate on logic. It operates on vibration. And vibration doesn't lie. That's why thoughts alone don't manifest. It's not enough to affirm what you want while embodying fear. It's not enough to visualize abundance while rehearsing lack. The field listens to the nervous system, to the breath, to the feeling tone beneath your words. That's why embodiment is the portal. When your body believes it's safe to receive, your reality has no choice but to reflect that safety. And here's the thing most people miss. You don't have to know what's coming next. You just have to stop resisting what's leaving. When you trust the clearing, you make space for the becoming. That's the work. Not clinging to timelines that no longer hold your frequency. Not forcing doors that are already closing, but honoring what your body knows before your mind catches up. Letting go is a practice of presence, of noticing when you've left yourself to chase an outcome, of gently returning, again and again, until presence becomes your home frequency, until the field has no choice but to mirror back your peace. So if it feels like something is slipping away, let it. If the old path no longer fits, bless it and release it. If your heart is aching for expansion, trust that ache. It's not confusion, it's clarity in disguise. It's the part of you that already knows where you're going, even when your eyes can't see it yet. The universe doesn't need proof to deliver. It needs coherence. You don't need to hustle your way into alignment. You only need to remember who you are beneath the programming, beneath the patterns, beneath the performance. That's where your true signal lives. That's the moment the door opens. Not when you become someone else, but when you stop pretending to be someone you're not. It's strange how the mind resists what the soul already knows. It clings to logic, to strategy, to certainty, as if safety lives in the known. But true safety, real energetic safety, comes not from controlling the outcome, but from trusting your coherence with it. And coherence isn't conceptual, it's felt. It's the subtle harmony between your thoughts, emotions, and body signals. It's the inner alignment that says, I am already the version of me who belongs here. But the old self doesn't trust that. The old self thinks safety lives in the story. In the identity, it's repeated for years, even if that story is full of lack, full of proving, full of chasing, because at least it's familiar, at least it's predictable. And the nervous system, without awareness, will always choose predictable pain over unpredictable peace. So how do you shift? Not by pushing, not by forcing, but by becoming intimate with your own internal landscape, by noticing the micro-signals of fear, tightness in the chest, clenching in the jaw, the racing pulse of, what if I lose everything? And instead of fighting it, you breathe with it. You meet it like a friend. Because resistance softens in the presence of safety. And safety isn't something you find outside. It's something you generate within. When you let your system feel safe to receive, safe to rest, safe to expand, the universe reads that as readiness. That's the observer effect in motion. Not just seeing something differently, but becoming someone new through the seeing. The moment you observe your old patterns with compassion instead of shame, they begin to dissolve. Not because you force them out, but because you no longer feed them with your identity. This is why real transformation feels so paradoxical. You're not becoming someone else. You're unbecoming everything that isn't you. Everything that was a mask, a performance, a trauma adaptation. And as each layer falls away, what's left isn't empty. It's true. It's magnetic. It's coherent. And coherence collapses time. What you thought would take years suddenly arrives through alignment. What you thought you had to earn reveals itself through surrender. The timeline doesn't stretch. Your signal sharpens. That's why things speed up when you stop pushing. That's why life feels lighter when you stop pretending. That's why doors open when you stop begging and start becoming, because the field rearranges for the self who no longer resists their own becoming. And it's not about perfection. It's about permission. Permission to feel what you feel without judgment. Permission to move slow, to pause, to breathe, to change your mind, to rewrite the story. Because the quantum doesn't measure speed, it measures signal. And your signal gets clearer every time you return to yourself. I've learned to trust the tremble before the breakthrough, the void before the vision, the silence before the shift, because those are the spaces where identity is dissolving and truth is rising. Those are the portals. Those are the invitations. And the moment you say yes, not with your words but with your embodiment, everything starts to move. You are not waiting for the universe. The universe is waiting for you, not for your effort, but for your essence, not for your doing, but for your remembering. And when you remember, even for a breath, the old self lets go. The door opens, and what you've been calling the future walks in like it's always known the way home. There's something holy about the pause, that suspended moment between the letting go and the arriving. It's where most people turn back, because the mind hates the unknown. It wants to label, to plan, to predict. But the quantum isn't linear. It's relational. It doesn't respond to plans. It responds to presence. And presence requires faith, not the kind built on blind belief, but the kind forged through felt experience. Through the remembering that every time you surrendered something that no longer resonated, something more true came to take its place. Not because you chased it, but because you became congruent with it. Still, the void can feel like loss, like absence, like something's missing. But what if nothing is missing? What if what feels like emptiness is actually space? Space for the signal of your next self to land. Space for your nervous system to catch up to your vision. Space for your future to breathe into the now. Most people don't stay long enough in the space to find out. They run back to old roles, old timelines, old patterns. Because doing something, anything, feels safer than being with the unknown. But when you stay, when you sit inside the quiet, something begins to reorganize beneath the surface. Subtle shifts in perception, gentle waves of clarity, synchronicities that whisper, you're on the right frequency. And then, without warning, life meets you differently. Not because it changed, but because you did. Your external doesn't change first. Your embodiment does. That's what signals the shift. That's what collapses time. That's what makes what once felt far suddenly feel inevitable. Because when you stop being the version of you that vibrated with doubt, you stop aligning with the timeline that kept reinforcing it. That's the real release, not of the desire, but of the identity that resisted it. And it's subtle. This isn't about grand declarations or dramatic gestures. It's in the soft yes whispered in your chest, in the exhale that doesn't carry tension, in the tiny moment you choose trust over urgency. And again, until trust becomes a felt baseline. Until your body remembers what your soul never forgot. You are already what you seek. You were never meant to manifest from fear. You were never meant to manipulate energy to feel worthy. You were meant to embody your truth so fully that your reality has no choice but to mirror it back. Because the universe doesn't need convincing, it needs coherence. So when the old voice rises, the one that says, it's not working, you should go back, bless it. It's just your past asking for reassurance. It's just your system echoing what it once believed was safe, but you don't have to follow it. You can stay, you can breathe, you can listen to the deeper signal. Because letting go is not the end. It's the beginning of becoming, the beginning of resonance, the beginning of a life that doesn't require you to abandon yourself to receive. And in that life, manifestations don't arrive to prove your worth. They arrive as reflections of it, as confirmations of your frequency, as mirrors of the self you chose to remember. The moment you stop clutching the closed door of your old self, the whole field shifts, the path clears, the signal sharpens, and what once felt like a dream begins to feel like gravity, inevitable, effortless, yours. Sometimes I imagine the old self as a house I once lived in. Familiar walls, worn-out furniture, the same creaking floorboards I walked every day. And even though the windows barely opened and the air felt stale, there was comfort in knowing where everything was. It was predictable. It was known. But I didn't realize I had outgrown it. that I had started shrinking just to fit inside. Letting go was like walking out of that house barefoot, uncertain, with nothing but my breath and a whisper of knowing that there was more, that I was more. But the mind doesn't like bare feet. It wants shoes, a map, a destination. It wants proof before the leap. But the soul moves differently. It doesn't need roads, it remembers the way. And so you walk, not because you're sure, but because you're ready to no longer betray your becoming. Ready to stop folding yourself into roles you've outgrown. Ready to feel the wind of uncertainty as an ally, not a threat. And the moment you take that first step, that embodied step, the field begins to shift. The fabric of your reality starts to reorganize. But it doesn't always look how you expect. Sometimes the shift looks like silence, like stillness, like nothing's happening. But the absence of noise doesn't mean absence of change. It means integration. It means your nervous system is catching up to your new identity. And integration isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet miracle unfolding under your skin. The old self wants guarantees. The new self thrives on resonance. And resonance doesn't require understanding. It requires trust. Trust in the felt sense of rightness, in the internal yes that doesn't need explanation, in the tingling clarity that comes not from logic, but from alignment. You've been taught that you have to earn the life you want, that you have to prove you're ready, that you must do more, push harder, manifest faster. But what if the opposite is true? What if the moment you stop performing worthiness, you begin embodying it? What if the moment you let go, the very frequency you've been chasing finally finds you? Because energy doesn't lie, and the version of you who's still trying to convince the universe is not the version the universe responds to. The one who tries to manipulate the outcome still vibrates with doubt, but the one who remembers who they are, who walks with quiet power, with deep breath, with unshakable coherence, that self doesn't need to chase. That self magnetizes. You don't manifest from effort. You manifest from essence. And essence doesn't scream. It whispers. It pulses. It radiates. It's the frequency of truth, uncluttered by conditioning. It's the energy of someone who no longer needs external permission to be at peace. So here you are, standing in the doorway between what was and what could be. One hand on the handle of the past. One foot on the threshold of the unknown. And in this moment, you get to choose, not just what you want, but who you're willing to be to receive it. Are you willing to release the version of you who keeps choosing smallness just because it's familiar? Because the door isn't locked, it's just waiting. Waiting for you to stop identifying with the house that once held you. Waiting for you to realize that you were never meant to stay, that your expansion is not a betrayal, it's a return. And when you finally let go, the universe doesn't hesitate. It breathes with you. It dances with you. It opens every door that once seemed closed. There's a kind of grace that enters when you stop needing everything to make sense. When you release your grip on timelines and outcomes and begin to trust the rhythm of your own unfolding, that's when the shift becomes cellular. Not just a concept, but a felt experience. Your breath slows, your chest opens, your eyes soften, and without even realizing it, you start living from a different signal, one that doesn't scream for attention, but hums with presence. This is the turning point, not a moment of grand arrival, but a subtle homecoming. To the version of you who never needed fixing, to the part of you that's always known how to listen, how to align, how to become. Because alignment isn't about perfection, it's about truth, and truth, in its rawest form, is magnetic. It doesn't need strategy, it just needs to be embodied. An embodiment, real embodiment, isn't about pretending you have it all together. It's about letting your body feel safe enough to stay open, even in the uncertainty. It's about regulating the nervous system until peace becomes your baseline, until your default isn't panic, but presence. That's when manifestation stops being a chase and becomes a natural extension of your state. You don't have to know what's next. You just have to stop anchoring your identity to what's already ended. The old self will try to pull you back, with familiar thoughts, old triggers, subtle doubts. It will whisper that nothing's changing, that you should try harder, do more, be better. But those voices aren't truth, they're echoes, and echoes only linger when you keep shouting into the past. The moment you stop echoing your old energy, the moment you stop reinforcing what no longer reflects you, the signal shifts. You stop vibrating with the problem and begin resonating with the solution. Not by finding it, but by becoming it, by tuning into the frequency where it already exists. Because what you seek isn't far away, it's just vibrating at a level you haven't fully embodied yet. That's why letting go is so essential. Not because the desire is wrong, but because the identity attached to lack can't access the reality of fulfillment. You can't take the closed-door version of yourself through the gateway of expansion, and yet there's no force required, only willingness. Willingness to feel the grief of shedding old skin, willingness to be patient in the pause, willingness to stop outsourcing your power and start owning your resonance. Because the field rearranges for clarity, not for chaos. And clarity comes when your inner world no longer contradicts your outer vision. I know the in-between can feel like nothingness, like floating without an anchor. But that's not nothing. That's freedom. That's spaciousness. That's your energetic scaffolding reorganizing itself around a new signal. And if you listen closely, you'll feel it. The gentle pull toward peace. The quiet invitation to trust what you can't yet explain. The quantum doesn't need your control. It needs your congruence. And congruence happens when your thoughts, emotions, and actions all speak the same language. Not from force, but from remembrance. From returning to the core of who you are. Before the conditioning, before the proving, before the fear. You don't have to do more. You don't have to fix anything. You just have to stop feeding the version of you who believes life must be hard, who believes she has to fight for her desires, who thinks the universe needs convincing. It doesn't. It only needs coherence. And when you step into that coherence, when you let the old self dissolve in the light of your new frequency, reality doesn't just shift. It aligns, effortlessly, naturally, inevitably. I used to think that if I could just do it all right, say the affirmations, visualize perfectly, hold the highest vibe, then everything would unfold exactly the way I wanted. I thought alignment was about perfection. But what I've come to see through every quiet unraveling is that alignment is about authenticity. It's about being true, not just in your desires, but in your being. Because you can't fake frequency. The quantum field is too precise, too intimate, too intelligent. It mirrors not your mask, but your marrow. The signal you emit isn't based on what you pretend to believe. It's based on what you truly feel safe to receive. And the part of you that still fears your own bigness, your own capacity to be loved without earning it, that part must be met. Not shamed, met, held, rewritten through presence. That's why letting go is less about what you release externally and more about what you integrate internally. It's the moment you stop bracing against the worst and start opening to the best. The moment you stop fighting for the scraps of attention from a reality built on survival and begin vibrating with the rhythm of your sovereignty. And sovereignty isn't loud. It doesn't need to announce itself. It walks quietly, lightly. It rests deeply. It trusts fully. Because it knows that what belongs to you doesn't require exhaustion to maintain. It only requires integrity. The willingness to no longer contradict yourself with every breath. The commitment to stop outsourcing your safety to external conditions. When you make that internal shift, when you become the embodiment of what you once tried to attract, everything changes. The field doesn't hesitate, because it's always been waiting for you to become available, truly available, not distracted by old doubts, not fragmented by fear, but present, whole, coherent. And the thing is, you've always had access to this self. She's not far, she's just quiet. She's the one who breathes deeply when no one's watching, who feels the sun and knows it's a blessing, who hears her intuition and doesn't doubt it, who lets life love her without needing to deserve it. That's the version of you who opens the door, not with force, but with frequency, not from effort, from essence. She doesn't chase, she remembers. She doesn't perform, she radiates. And in that remembering, the universe no longer needs to test her. It meets her, mirrors her, moves with her. There's a sacred intelligence in this field we live in. It's not random, it's relational, it's responsive. And when you change your signal, it must respond. That's not belief, it's physics. That's the observer effect. Not just looking at life differently, but becoming the one who life looks different for. Because you're no longer reacting, you're creating. You're no longer bound to your past frequency. You're free. So feel that freedom. Let it rise in your chest. Let it soften your spine. Let it pulse in your fingertips. This is not a future you're reaching for. This is a present you're aligning with. This is not something you get to have. It's someone you get to be. And as you stand in this new energy, uncluttered and clear, the doors begin to swing open. Not because you pushed them, but because they were always meant for the you who remembered. So here you are, not at the end, but at the beginning, not at the finish line, but at the threshold of a new frequency, one that doesn't require you to prove or perform, but simply to be, to breathe, to let the truth of your essence be enough. And maybe for the first time, you feel it, not as a concept, but as a hum under your skin, a quiet knowing in your bones, that you don't need to reach, stretch, or strive anymore. You need only to remember. Remember what it feels like to trust the invisible, to believe without evidence, to let your body be the proof, because the nervous system, when regulated, becomes a bridge between the unseen and the physical, between thought and form, between desire and embodiment. It's not the mind that creates, it's the coherence of your being. You've lived enough lives in effort. You've written enough stories in survival ink. But this is the chapter of surrender. Not collapse, not giving up, but giving in to truth, to resonance, to the frequency of your future self calling you home, not to some far-off destination, but to now, this moment, this breath. Because everything you're seeking is already here, waiting for you to align, to open, to let go of who you thought you had to be. And what a miracle that is, that you don't have to fix yourself to receive, that you don't have to wait to be chosen, that you can be new, right here, in this exact breath. That with one exhale, the universe can rearrange itself around your coherence, around your yes, around your unshakable remembrance that you are not the closed door. You are the one who walks through. So if the old identity calls, let it call. You don't need to answer. You don't need to argue. You only need to feel the ground beneath your feet and the power in your chest and the stillness in your gaze. Because the you who tried to control it all was doing her best. But the you who surrenders is magnetic, effortless, embodied. You don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you are. So become the frequency of the life that waits for you, not through hustle, but through honesty, not through repetition, but through remembrance, not more doing, more being, more presence, more breath. Let this be the moment, not dramatic, not loud, but deeply sacred. The moment you stop asking, when will it come, and start asking, am I available for it now? The moment you stop needing to see the outcome to believe in it, because you've become the outcome, you've become the evidence. The moment you let go, the universe rearranges itself, not as a reward, but as a mirror, because you finally stopped holding the closed door and started holding yourself. And in that holding, you became the open one, the clear one, the coherent one. The door isn't opening. You are.